It began with a quiet adjustment buried deep inside a set of Sandringham estate, records and administrative change so small that most people would never have noticed it. But within royal circles, the implications were explosive. When Queen Camilla reportedly learned that her name had quietly disappeared from a key Sandringham trust structure, the reaction behind palace walls was said to be immediate. What looked like paperwork was actually the beginning of a royal reckoning. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For generations, Sandringham has occupied a unique place within the story of the British monarchy. It is not merely a private estate. It is a symbol, a refuge, a place where monarchs have celebrated triumphs, endured personal heartbreak, and quietly prepared for the future of the crown. That is why reports of a sudden trust restructuring sent such shockwaves through royal circles. On the surface, the change appeared routine, the kind of administrative adjustment that rarely attracts public attention. Yet insiders whisper that this was anything but routine. According to various interpretations emerging from palace-adjacent sources, King Charles quietly approved a significant revision to a trust arrangement connected to the oversight of Sandringham, and what made the move so extraordinary was not merely the decision itself, but the timing and the people involved. Reports suggest that Queen Camilla was not part of the final decision-making process. More remarkably, some accounts claim that she was informed only after the restructuring had already been completed. If true, that detail alone would explain why so many royal observers immediately viewed the move as something larger than a bureaucratic adjustment. Because within royal life, the manner in which information is delivered often carries as much meaning as the information itself. Those familiar with palace traditions determine that influence is rarely measured through public titles alone. Influence is reflected in access, consultation, and participation. And when a figure as prominent as Camilla is reportedly removed from a key estate structure without direct involvement, questions inevitably begin to multiply. Almost immediately, speculation spread throughout royal circles. Why now? Why would King Charles authorize such a sensitive change at a moment when stability appears more important than ever? Some commentators pointed toward the king's growing focus on long-term legacy planning. Others suggested that concerns about succession and the future stewardship of royal assets may have influenced the decision. Palace administrative streams, ranging from estate advisors to longtime royal observers, began examining every possible explanation. Yet no definitive answer emerged. Instead, the mystery only deepened. What made matters even more intriguing was the reaction reportedly witnessed among senior hold figures. Sources described surprise, uncertainty, and quiet confusion as news of the restructuring slowly circulated through royal networks. No public disagreement emerged. No official statements were issued. Yet according to insiders, conversations intensified behind closed doors. The silence itself became a story. Because when an institution built upon protocol chooses not to explain something, observers often assume the explanation must be significant. As the days passed, attention gradually shifted toward the individuals believed to have benefited from the changing landscape. Royal watchers began connecting the development to broader discussions about the future of the monarchy. Prince William's increasingly prominent role within long-term planning became impossible to ignore. Princess Anne's reputation as a guardian of royal tradition once again entered the conversation. Reports suggest that both figures have become increasingly influential as the institution prepares for the challenges of the next generation. Whether they played any role in supporting the decision remains entirely speculative, but their names continued appearing alongside discussions of the Sandringham restructuring. And that is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Because this was never simply about one name being removed from one trust document. The deeper issue appears to involve a struggle over stewardship, authority, and the future direction of one of the monarchy's most treasured possessions. Behind the legal language and administrative paperwork lies a much larger question about who will shape the next chapter of royal history. The trust change may have been quiet, but its consequences have already begun echoing far beyond the estate itself, setting the stage for a much larger confrontation over legacy, influence, and the future of the crown. But the story was never really about a trust document, it was about control over one of the crown's most symbolic strongholds. To you, Understand why this decision sent shockwaves through royal circles. You first have to understand what Sandringham represents. It is not merely a country estate. It is memory, legacy, tradition, and power wrapped into thousands of acres of royal history. And whoever helps shape its future inevitably shapes part of the monarchy's future as well. The questions surrounding the trust restructuring only became more intense once attention turned towards Sandringham itself. Because unlike many royal properties that exist within the broader framework of the crown, Sandringham occupies a uniquely personal place in the story of the monarchy. It has long been viewed as more than land, more than buildings, and certainly more than a financial asset. For generations, it has represented continuity during times of uncertainty. Monarchs have come and gone. Governments have risen and fallen. Public opinion has shifted countless times. Yet Sandringham remained, carrying with it the weight of family history and the quiet responsibility of preserving a legacy that stretches back through decades of royal life. That legacy became especially intertwined with the late Queen Elizabeth II. Reports suggest that Sandringham was among the places closest to her heart, not because of its status, but because of what it symbolized. It was a retreat from public pressures, a setting connected to family traditions, and a place where decisions affecting the future of the monarchy were often considered far from public scrutiny. For many royal traditionalists, protecting Sandringham meant protecting a direct link to the values that Elizabeth spent her reign defending. That is why even minor changes connected to its governance tend to attract extraordinary attention. The distinction is important because Sandringham is not viewed in the same way as crown assets managed on behalf of the nation. It belongs to a category of royal property that carries a far more personal dimension. That reality has always made questions of stewardship particularly sensitive. Who advises on its future? Who participates in decisions involving its management? Who ultimately safeguards its legacy for the generations that follow? These questions rarely make headlines, yet behind palace walls they are often considered matters of enormous significance. According to various royal commentators, trust structures play a crucial role in answering those questions. They are designed not only to protect assets, but to ensure continuity through changing generations. On paper, they may appear technical and unremarkable. In practice, they help determine how historic estates are preserved long after individual personalities have come and gone. That is why reports of changes involving the Sandringham Trust immediately triggered speculation about larger intentions. Observers were no longer asking what had changed. They were asking why. And the timing only fueled those conversations further. As King Charles continues navigating the immense responsibilities of the crown while confronting ongoing health concerns, reports suggest he has become increasingly focused on the question every monarch eventually faces. What legacy will remain when his chapter ends? Those familiar with royal history understand that such periods often inspire long-term planning. Decisions once considered distant suddenly become urgent. Structures that seemed settled are reviewed. Responsibilities are reassessed. Futures are prepared for. That broader context has led many royal watchers to focus on Prince William. Increasingly, Sandringham is being discussed not merely as part of Charles's present, but as part of William's future. Some observers believe recent developments reflect an effort to strengthen continuity before the eventual transition to a new reign. Others argue the changes are simply administrative and unrelated to succession planning. Yet the speculation refuses to fade because the stakes feel too large. The estate has become a symbol of what comes next, and symbols carry immense power inside an institution built upon tradition. As these conversations intensified, another reality began emerging beneath the surface. While many viewed Sandringham as a safeguard for continuity, others reportedly saw something equally valuable: access, influence, and a voice in shaping one of the monarchy's most treasured legacies. And that realization would soon transform quiet questions into something far more consequential. Yet while Sandringham represented continuity to some, others reportedly saw it as influence that could be gained or lost. Long before the trust change became public gossip, whispers of tension had already begun circulating among palace observers. Nothing dramatic, nothing visible. Just subtle signs that important conversations were taking place behind closed doors, away from cameras, courtiers, and even some family members. The deeper the discussion surrounding Sandringham became, the more apparent it was that the trust restructuring had not emerged from nowhere. Reports suggest that the foundations for this moment may have been laid months earlier, hidden beneath a series of seemingly routine reviews and private consultations. At first, few people paid attention. After all, the monarchy is constantly engaged in planning for the future. Meetings happen. Documents are reviewed. Advisors offer recommendations. Yet according to palace observers, something about these discussions felt different. There was a growing sense that the conversations were not focused solely on the present, but on a future that senior royals believed was approaching faster than anyone publicly acknowledged. Sources close to royal circles claimed that differing views regarding estate governance had gradually begun to surface. These were not necessarily personal disputes. They were questions of philosophy, responsibility, and long-term stewardship. As King Charles continued shaping his reign, reports suggest he became increasingly focused on ensuring that key royal assets would remain protected for generations to come. That objective sounds straightforward, but within an institution as old and complex as the monarchy, even agreement on the goal does not guarantee agreement on the method. Different advisors reportedly held different opinions about how that future should be secured. Some insiders whisper that Charles had quietly begun reviewing succession-related arrangements far beyond the public gaze. Not merely titles and ceremonial responsibilities, but the intricate framework that supports the monarchy behind the scenes. Estates, trusts, governance structures, long-term oversight mechanisms. Matters rarely discussed outside palace walls. According to various interpretations, these reviews were driven by a growing awareness that preparation delayed today could become a problem inherited tomorrow. The king's reported determination to leave behind a stable institution may have become one of the defining motivations behind a series of decisions that would only become visible much later. At the same time, observers began noticing the growing influence of advisors known for prioritizing institutional stability above all else. These figures reportedly approached every discussion through a single lens: what best protects the crown in the decades ahead. Their focus was not on personalities. It was not on temporary political pressures. It was on continuity. And according to some accounts, that perspective gradually began shaping conversations at the highest levels. The result was a shift in emphasis. Instead of asking who currently held influence, discussions increasingly centered on who should hold responsibility in the future. That subtle distinction carried enormous consequences, because amid broader restructuring discussions, reports suggest that Queen Camilla's position was inevitably examined alongside other elements of the monarchy's evolving framework. There is no public evidence of confrontation, no confirmation of disagreement, yet palace insiders claim that questions were being asked about the future distribution of authority and oversight, not because of immediate concerns, but because long-term governance requires difficult decisions long before they become urgent. As these reviews continued, senior royals were reportedly drawn into wider conversations about institutional continuity. Questions emerged regarding who should oversee key family assets in the years ahead, who would protect historic estates, who would maintain traditions established over generations, who would ensure that personal interests never overshadowed the broader mission of preserving royal heritage. The answers were not simple, and according to those familiar with the discussions, consensus was far from guaranteed. What made the situation even more intriguing was the growing rumor that major decisions were already being prepared long before the public knew anything was happening. Royal commentators believe the groundwork for the Sandringham changes had been quietly established months in advance. If true, that would mean the trust restructuring was never a sudden development at all. It was merely the final step in a process that had been unfolding behind closed doors while the public remained unaware. And once that possibility entered the conversation, everything changed. Because if months of planning had led to this moment, then the trust restructuring was not simply administrative housekeeping. It was evidence of a much larger strategy taking shape at the heart of the monarchy. The quiet whispers that once seemed insignificant suddenly appeared connected to something far more consequential, something capable of reshaping perceptions of influence, succession, and power itself. Then came the decision that transformed quiet whispers into a full-scale royal controversy. There was no public announcement, no press conference, no dramatic palace statement. Instead, according to reports, King Charles chose a different route, the kind favored by monarchs throughout history. He acted quietly, decisively, and behind the scenes, leaving others to discover the consequences afterward. By the time whispers about the Sandringham restructuring began spreading through royal circles, many insiders believed the most important decisions had already been made. That realization only added to the growing sense of intrigue. Because if months of discussions, reviews, and private consultations had led to this moment, then the public was seeing only the final chapter of a story that had largely unfolded out of sight. Reports suggest that King Charles had quietly approved revised trust arrangements connected to Sandringham's future governance, setting in motion a chain of events that would soon become one of the most talked about developments within royal circles. What made the decision so remarkable was not merely its existence, but the way it reportedly unfolded. According to various accounts, the restructuring was completed with extraordinary discretion. There were no leaks beforehand, no public hints that a significant adjustment was approaching. Palace observers who normally detect changes long before they become official appeared caught off guard. The silence was almost as striking as the decision itself. For an institution built upon tradition, process, and carefully managed communication, such a swift and contained development immediately attracted attention. At the center of the speculation stood Queen Camilla. Reports suggest that the revised arrangements may have resulted in her exclusion from a key oversight position connected to the estate's governance framework. While details remain unclear, and much of the discussion remains speculative, the possibility alone generated enormous interest. Royal commentators began asking difficult questions. If the reports were accurate, why had such a change been deemed necessary? What circumstances had led to the decision? And perhaps most importantly, why had it happened now? The timing became impossible to ignore. According to palace insiders, the restructuring had allegedly been finalized before many figures within the wider royal family became aware of it. If true, that detail transformed the story from a simple administrative adjustment into something far more consequential. Because within royal life, information often reflects influence. Those informed first are frequently those closest to the center of decision-making. Those informed later can find themselves confronting realities that have already been determined. It is that possibility that fueled so much speculation in the days that followed. Reports emerging from palace-adjacent sources describe surprise among senior household figures as news of the finalized arrangements gradually circulated. Some insiders allegedly expected a lengthy consultation process. Others believed any significant change involving Sandringham would require extensive discussion. Instead, the implementation reportedly moved forward with remarkable speed. That speed itself became part of the mystery. Observers began wondering whether the urgency reflected practical concerns or whether it signaled a broader strategic objective taking shape behind the scenes. Royal commentators soon turned their attention toward King Charles himself. According to various interpretations, the decision reflected a monarch increasingly focused on institutional priorities rather than personal considerations. Throughout his reign, Charles has often spoken about continuity, sustainability, and preserving the monarchy for future generations. Some observers believe the Sandringham restructuring aligns with those broader goals. Others view it as evidence that difficult decisions are being made as part of a larger effort to secure the institution's long-term future. Regardless of the explanation, the narrative quickly shifted. The conversation was no longer considered centered on one trust arrangement. It was becoming a discussion about the future direction of the monarchy itself. And that is where Prince William's name began appearing with greater frequency. As speculation intensified, many royal watchers started connecting the restructuring to larger succession-related considerations. William's growing responsibilities within royal life were already evident. His role in shaping the future of the institution appeared to be expanding with each passing year. Some commentators questioned whether the Sandringham changes represented another step in that broader transition. Others urged caution, noting that no official connection had been established. Yet the speculation continued to grow because the circumstances seemed too significant to dismiss. What began as a quiet administrative adjustment was rapidly evolving into something much larger, a story about influence, preparation, and the shifting balance of power within one of the world's most enduring institutions. Every new question seemed to generate another. Every explanation appeared to reveal a deeper layer beneath it. And as observers searched for answers, attention slowly shifted away from what had changed and toward who stood to gain from the transformation that was now unfolding. But the most surprising part was not the decision itself, it was who appeared to benefit from the new order. As details slowly emerged, attention shifted away from what Camilla may have lost and toward who stood to gain. Suddenly, discussions across royal circles centered on a new generation of leadership and an increasingly visible effort to prepare the monarchy for its next chapter. The trust restructuring had already sparked questions about influence, authority, and long-term planning. But as the conversation evolved, a different narrative began taking shape. Instead of focusing solely on the immediate consequences of the decision, royal observers started examining the broader direction in which the monarchy appeared to be moving. And with every passing day, one name seemed to surface more frequently than any other: Prince William. While there was no official announcement connecting him to the Sandringham changes, many commentators believe the development reflected a larger effort to prepare the future king for responsibilities that would eventually define his reign. For years, William has occupied a unique position within the institution. He is not simply the heir to the throne. He is increasingly viewed as the bridge between the monarchy's historic past and its uncertain future. Reports suggest that many within royal circles see long-term stewardship as one of his most important responsibilities. Not stewardship of titles or ceremonies alone, but stewardship of the values, traditions, and institutions that have sustained the crown through generations of change. Against that backdrop, Sandringham became more than an estate. It became a symbol of continuity, a symbol of preparati, a symbol of what comes next. At the same time, another figure continued appearing in conversations surrounding the future of the monarchy: Princess Anne. Known throughout royal circles for her unwavering commitment to duty, Anne has long been regarded as one of the institution's most dependable guardians. According to various royal commentators, she represents something increasingly valuable during periods of transition stability. While public attention often gravitates toward future monarchs, insiders frequently point to Anne as a source of continuity whose influence extends far beyond public appearances. Reports suggest that many traditionalists view her as a protector of the principles that have guided the monarchy for decades. As speculation surrounding William and Anne intensified, a broader theme began emerging. Senior advisors, according to various accounts, were increasingly emphasizing long-term planning over short-term influence. That distinction became crucial. The discus. Succession was no longer centered on personalities. It was centered on legacy. Questions once framed around who currently holds authority gradually shifted toward who would carry responsibility into the future. The language itself changed. Words such as succession, continuity, stewardship, and preservation became increasingly prominent in conversations surrounding the monarchy's next chapter. The public seemed to sense the shift as well. Across royal commentary, attention moved toward larger questions about transition. What kind of institution would William eventually inherit? What structures were being established now to strengthen the monarchy in the decades ahead? What decisions were being made today that future generations might one day regard as pivotal? The Sandringham restructuring suddenly appeared to fit into a much larger puzzle. It was no longer viewed as an isolated administrative matter. Instead, it became part of an unfolding story about preparation and succession. According to some observers, King Charles himself appeared to be at the center of that effort. Reports suggest that the king has become increasingly focused on ensuring that the monarchy remains strong long after his reign concludes. Such ambitions are hardly unusual for a monarch. Every sovereign hopes to leave behind a stronger institution than the one they inherited. Yet what made the current moment so compelling was the growing belief that Charles was actively laying foundations for the future while he still possessed the authority to do so. Every decision was being examined through that lens. Every adjustment was being interpreted as part of a larger strategy. In that context, Sandringham evolved into something far greater than a historic estate. It became a powerful symbol of transformation. To some, it represented the careful transfer of responsibility from one generation to the next. To others, it signaled the emergence of a new balance of influence within royal life. Whatever the truth, the estate now stood at the center of discussions about the monarchy's future direction. The conversation had moved beyond property and paperwork. It had become a conversation about legacy itself. Yet for all the focus on succession, continuity, and the future, another reality remained impossible to ignore. Behind every institutional decision are human consequences, and behind every shift in influence are individuals forced to confront a changing landscape. As attention increasingly turned toward those rising within the new order, questions about those left behind only became more intense. Yet even as the future appeared to be taking shape, the personal consequences of the decision were impossible to ignore. For years, Queen Camilla had occupied one of the most influential positions within royal life. That made the reported trust decision all the more startling. Not because it removed a title or public role, but because it suggested that influence inside the monarchy could change. Far more quickly than anyone expected. As conversations surrounding Sandringham continued to spread, attention gradually shifted from institutional questions to personal consequences. The discussion was no longer focused solely on trusts, governance structures, or succession planning. Instead, many observers became fascinated by what the reported changes might mean for Queen Camilla herself. After all, influence inside the monarchy is rarely measured by official titles alone. It is often reflected through access, consultation, and participation in decisions that shape the institution's future. That is why reports suggesting a reduced role within a key Sandringham arrangement immediately attracted such intense attention. According to various accounts circulating within royal commentary, Camilla was reportedly caught off guard by the development. Whether those reports are accurate remains impossible to confirm publicly, yet the perception itself became a major part of the story. For Camilla had been viewed as one of the most significant figures within the royal household. She stood beside Charles through some of the most challenging chapters of his public life. She witnessed the long and often difficult journey that eventually led to her becoming queen. From that perspective, speculation that she may have been surprised by a decision of this magnitude appeared extraordinary. The story quickly expanded beyond palace corridors. Media attention intensified. Every new report generated fresh analysis. Every unnamed source appeared to offer another interpretation. Some commentators described the trust restructuring as evidence of changing priorities within the monarchy. Others argued it reflected a broader effort to strengthen institutional frameworks ahead of future transitions. The more theories emerged, the more public fascination grew. Yet despite endless discussions, certainty remained elusive. That uncertainty became one of the most compelling elements of the entire controversy. Because the monarchy has always inspired interest not merely through what is revealed, but through what remains hidden. The unanswered questions often become more powerful than the answers themselves. In this case, observers found themselves trying to understand whether the reported Sandringham changes represented an isolated administrative decision or part of a much larger transformation unfolding behind closed doors. As debate intensified, attention turned toward the future. Questions began emerging about influence within royal operations moving forward. Would the restructuring affect broader governance arrangements? Could it signal a redistribution of responsibilities among senior royals? Was this an indication that the monarchy was entering a new phase in its evolution? Commentators offered countless theories, yet none carried definitive proof. The result was a climate of speculation unlike anything seen since the initial report surfaced. Supporters and critics alike found themselves interpreting the same developments through entirely different lenses. Those sympathetic to Camilla viewed the reports as evidence of a difficult and perhaps unfair adjustment. Others saw the situation as a natural consequence of long-term institutional planning. Some argued that continuity must always come before individual influence. Others insisted that loyalty and service should carry equal weight. The contrast between those viewpoints ensured that the controversy remained alive long after the original details emerged. What made the situation even more intriguing was the palace's refusal to publicly engage with the speculation. No clarification arrived. No detailed explanation was offered. Official silence remained firmly in place. That silence allowed every rumor, theory, and interpretation to flourish. In many ways, the absence of a response became part of the story itself. The less that was said, the more people wanted to know. And behind all the headlines, one reality remained impossible to ignore. The controversy had evolved far beyond a trust restructuring. It had become a symbol of shifting influence, changing priorities, and the uncertain future awaiting the monarchy. Every development seemed connected to something larger lurking just beyond public view. Every answer appeared to raise an even bigger question. The deeper observers looked, the more complicated the picture became. And as silence spread from Sandringham to Buckingham Palace, one question remained unanswered. Why now? That simple question became the center of every discussion. Why make such a significant change at this particular moment? Why risk controversy when stability appeared more important than ever? The answers, according to various reports, may reveal far more about the monarchy's future than anyone realizes. As speculations surrounding the Sandringham restructuring continued to intensify, one question refused to disappear. It echoed through newspaper columns, royal commentary, and private conversations alike. Why now? Why would King Charles choose this particular moment to approve a decision that would inevitably attract scrutiny? The timing seemed almost impossible to separate from the broader realities facing the monarchy. What initially appeared to be an isolated administrative adjustment was increasingly being viewed as part of something much larger. Something connected not merely to Sandringham itself, but to the future direction of the institution as a whole. According to various royal observers, the answer may begin with King Charles's growing focus on legacy. Every monarch eventually confronts a difficult truth: no reign lasts forever. The responsibility of leadership is not simply about managing the present but preparing for what follows. Reports suggest that Charles has become increasingly conscious of that responsibility in recent years. Discussions once considered long-term priorities may now be viewed with greater urgency. Ions that could have been postponed are reportedly being addressed today rather than left for future generations to solve. In that context, the Sandringham changes take on an entirely different meaning. The king's ongoing health challenges have only intensified those conversations. While Charles continues fulfilling his constitutional responsibilities, reports suggest that questions surrounding succession planning have naturally become more prominent behind closed doors. This does not mean immediate change is expected. Rather, it reflects the reality that institutions survive through preparation. According to palace observers, careful planning often becomes most important during periods when uncertainty begins creeping into the background. And uncertainty, even when unspoken, has a way of influencing decisions long before the public becomes aware of it. At the same time, advisors reportedly focused on future-proofing the monarchy appear to have gained increasing influence. Their task is not merely to solve today's challenges. It is to anticipate tomorrow's. According to various accounts, these advisors have spent years examining how royal institutions can remain stable through changing political climates, shifting public expectations, and eventual transitions of leadership. From that perspective, every major estate, trust arrangement, and governance framework becomes part of a larger strategic picture. The focus is not on individuals. It is on continuity. That is precisely why Sandringham has become such a powerful symbol within this story. Reports suggest that many observers no longer see the estate as a standalone issue. Instead, they view it as one piece of a broader blueprint taking shape around the future of the monarchy. Every discussion about stewardship seems connected to wider questions about succession. Every conversation about oversight appears linked to long-term planning. Sandringham, in this interpretation, is not the destination. It is merely one stop, along a much larger journey. Prince William's future role has become central to that conversation. As heir to the throne, his eventual reign increasingly influences decisions being made today. Royal commentators have frequently noted that preparation for a future monarch does not begin when a crown changes hands. It begins years earlier. Structures are strengthened, responsibilities evolve. Foundations are laid quietly and deliberately. Some observers believe the Sandringham restructuring reflects exactly that kind of preparation. Others remain skeptical. Yet regardless of where opinions differ, the connection between present decisions and future leadership has become impossible to ignore. Historical precedents only add weight to those arguments. Royal historians often point out that periods of transition have repeatedly inspired monarchs to secure their legacies through institutional reforms. The names may change, the circumstances may differ, yet the underlying objective remains remarkably consistent: ensuring that the crown emerges stronger than it was before. That perspective has led many commentators to interpret the Sandringham controversy not as an unexpected disruption, but as part of a familiar royal pattern stretching back generations. And perhaps that is why so many observers now believe this move may only be the beginning. The trust restructuring has generated attention not because of what it changed, but because of what it might represent. Beneath every discussion lies the growing suspicion that larger transformations may already be underway. If Sandringham is indeed part of a broader strategy, then future developments could reveal an institution quietly preparing itself for a new era long before that era officially arrives. Because what happened at Sandringham may ultimately be remembered not as an isolated decision, but as the first signal of a royal transformation. 2 minutes ago, the headlines focused on a trust. But history may remember something much larger. Behind the paperwork, the meetings, and the speculation lies a story about legacy: who protects it, who shapes it, and who ultimately inherits the responsibility of carrying it forward. As the dust continues to settle around the Sandringham controversy, the conversation has begun moving beyond the immediate details of the restructuring itself. What once appeared to be a story about administrative adjustments has evolved into something far more significant. Increasingly, royal observers are treating Sandringham not as the center of the story, but as a symbol of a deeper transformation taking place within the House of Windsor. The estate now represents a larger question about where the monarchy is heading and who will guide it there. That is why this moment continues to attract such extraordinary attention. People are no longer debating a trust arrangement. They are debating the future. According to various interpretations, King Charles's reported decision may ultimately be one of the defining moments of his reign. Not because it generated controversy, but because of what it potentially revealed about his priorities. Throughout this story, one theme has repeatedly surfaced above all others: legacy. Reports suggest that Charles has become increasingly focused on ensuring that the institution he inherited remains secure long after his reign concludes. Every monarch hopes to leave behind something enduring. Every sovereign faces the challenge of balancing present realities with future responsibilities. What makes this situation so compelling is the growing belief that Charles may already be shaping the foundations upon which the next generation will build. That next generation is becoming impossible to ignore. Prince William's name has appeared throughout nearly every discussion connected to the Sandringham developments. While no official statement has linked him directly to the restructuring, the symbolism remains powerful. William increasingly represents the future of the monarchy. As heir to the throne, his responsibilities continue expanding, and many commentators believe that present-day decisions are already being influenced by the realities of his future reign. The transition has not occurred, but preparation appears to be underway. Quietly. Deliberately. For traditionalists, this is precisely how institutions survive. According to many royal historians and commentators, successful monarchies are not built upon reaction. They are built upon preparation. They endure because difficult decisions are made before circumstances demand them. That perspective has shaped much of the debate surrounding Sandringham. Supporters of the reported changes argue that preservation must always take precedence over personality. They believe that protecting royal institutions requires long-term thinking, even when those decisions prove controversial. Whether one agrees or disagrees with that view, it remains a powerful force within discussions about the monarchy's future. Yet even as attention shifts toward continuity and succession, questions surrounding Queen Camilla remain unresolved. Reports and speculation continue to circulate regarding her future role and influence within royal operations. Some observers believe the controversy will eventually fade as new priorities emerge. Others argue that the story represents a significant turning point whose implications may continue unfolding for years. The absence of official clarification has only intensified public curiosity. Without definitive answers, every new development invites fresh interpretation. Many royal watchers now expect additional changes in the years ahead. Not necessarily dramatic or public ones, but subtle adjustments reflecting a monarchy preparing for the future. If that expectation proves correct, then Sandringham may eventually be viewed as the first visible sign of a broader evolution already taking place behind closed doors. A shift not defined by why one individual, one estate, or one decision, but by an institution adapting itself for the challenges of another generation. And perhaps that is the most remarkable aspect of this entire story. The balance of influence within the House of Windsor appears to be changing. Slowly. Quietly. Almost invisibly at times. Yet change nevertheless. The conversations surrounding Sandringham have revealed a monarchy caught between past and future, between established relationships and emerging responsibilities, between tradition and preparation. What began as a reported trust restructuring has become a story about power, stewardship, and legacy itself. The questions raised by this controversy may not be answered immediately. Some may linger for months. Others could remain subjects of debate for years. But one thing has become increasingly clear. Sandringham is no longer simply an estate associated with royal history. It has become a symbol of the future that history is now preparing to write. And if this quiet decision truly marks the beginning of a new royal era, then the events at Sandringham were not the end of the story, they were only the first chapter. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.